Alrighty, I'm here with Megan Hutchinson, a great family friend, but also a great expert when it comes to dealing with the millennial generation. Megan, can you just start off with giving me your opinion on millennials, both kind of a positive and a negative thing that you've observed given your career and experience?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say that it's an honor to be on the show with you today, Austin McLean. I am one of your greatest fans ever. And I just said to Austin before we went live that he could be president someday. So that's how
I
much
don't
I
know
love.
about that, but
Um, so millennials, one of the things that your listeners might want to know about me is I served as a youth pastor for 25 years. Now I'm an adult ministries pastor. So I still do engage with millennials, not as much as I used to. But one of the things that I realize about the age group is they know a whole heck of a lot more than we do when it comes to a lot of things, namely technology and how to articulate and even communicate in a social media realm. And that is something that, I will hand my phone to my 12-year-old who's not a millennial, but I'll hand it to him and he'll know how to operate it and use it in ways that I think I'm pretty savvy when it comes to this
yeah.
world. But they will what will take me 5 minutes will take them two. So therefore the positive part of being millennial is that um, they kind of um, they they're quick learners to something that can be for those of us who are older and older than me certainly is could be very, very time consuming. So, I appreciate that a lot about them. The flip side of that quickness, what I would maybe use as an analogy, is a microwave versus a crock pot. um, I think millennials are more microwave. They're used to this expedient, quick. I don't want to put in my time to figure out the answers. I
Mm,
want a six pack of abs, but you know what? I want to take a pill to get me there.
yeah.
So it's more an instant society, or group of people, um, and and I think, I mean, in comparison as to those who were, baby boomers, even Gen X, we knew you have to work a little bit harder than the people who are kind of in the millennial, defined as millennials today.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a change there.
All right, well, great. That's a great place to start. So my first question, for the listeners who don't know, Megan spent a lot of time dealing with students who have suffered and experienced a good amount of hurt in their life, and so a lot of that kind of stems from divorce. And so seeing that there's a lot of increase in the divorce rate, how do you see that affecting this generation as they're continuing to grow up?
The first word that comes to my mind is instability. When every single person, sociologists, psychologists, even some theologians would nod their head in agreement that every person that's walking this earth, zero to the grave, are in the process of figuring out three things, and that is identity, belonging, and separation, or maybe a better word is purpose. So identity being, who am I? Belonging, where do I fit or where do I belong? And then really, separation, meaning, who am I as separate from my mom or my dad or my family of origin? How
Mm,
do I define my beliefs as different or similar to theirs? Um, so when you throw in any kind of instability into that mix, it can cause identity confusion. It can
mm,
cause belonging confusion, and really this sense of, where is my foundation? Where can I go to find my true I? Um, Not the we, not in what other people are defining me as, but where, if my parents are messed up, if I can't go to my mom or my dad, or maybe I can just go to one and not the other, um, who will help me truly define, um, the I, the identity, and the belonging, as well as the purpose? Is I mean, nobody will argue that the home is the number one influential place for us to define and figure out the answer to that question. Now it gets jolted as you leave the home for sure, and it should and it could and it needs to be, because that's the process of truly figuring out the I
yeah.
apart from mom and dad. But I think millennials particularly um, struggle with that. They one of the things we know to be true about millennials is they question everything. So
Yeah.
And that's a good quality, that they are inquisitive. They're not just accepting, rather, tell me, why would we believe in God? Why would we believe that Jesus is Lord? Why do we go to that church and not the other one? Why do we even go to church? How do you know the Bible's real? They ask these questions that many of us just accepted and are now having to ask ourselves the question as adults. Millennials take the bull by the horns, and they're not afraid to ask why.
Wow, I mean, that's some good insight. And I noticed, just for me leaving the home, trying to find that sense of I away from a hard but a great experience from that. So my second question would be, given your experience dealing with my generation, what would be a great piece of advice that you'd give someone like me in their walk with the Lord, or just as they go about their life? Like, what would be the single most important thing that you would tell someone like me, or greatest bit of wisdom you can?
Hmm. Now I'm speaking to a believer right now, right, Austin? Okay. Um, some of the studies have shown that millennials are less religious than previous generations. I think it's like 30%, 29% claim no religion affiliate at all. The good part of that is there's still like this, 70% that are still profess some belief in God. Actually, a little higher than that. So, so with that, I'm gonna coin something that I read in Relevant magazine about
Okay.
millennials, that you're posed for revival. You are you're positioned to make a radical difference, to make a stand for what you believe in, and to have a voice and to use it boldly. Um, and to be kind of fearless. I think humble, of course, humility always wins. It's always more attractive than that bold, prideful personality,
Yeah.
but you can still have a bold voice with humility behind it that says, I believe this, and if you want to come join me on this, we can start asking each other questions, and get other people, light a flame under other people for what this could look like in our community. We don't have to live isolated. We don't have to live with our heads and our faces in our phones 24/7.
Yeah.
We can actually be engaged and be vulnerable. I think that's a big piece. We
Mm,
can be vulnerable, and it's important that we are vulnerable. I think the millennials. I think this is fair to say. Like most generations, are afraid of intimacy um, and vulnerability, personal vulnerability. But it's really going to be important, I would say, to your generation, Austin, to say, I know that that's what all the studies show, and we ask a lot of questions, and we don't buy any, we don't believe a whole lot, but you do believe a lot. You actually
hmm
do. And I would say, for what you believe in, particularly as a believer, that you would say, I'm gonna bring people along this journey with me, and I'm gonna invite them into this um, because we there is a chance of revival, and our culture is starving to be moved in a direction that is more positive than negative, be moved in a direction that says, I have a purpose for my life on earth, and the enemy will do all that he can to steer me away from it. My husband said something really great. And Austin, my husband, Adam, like,
Yeah.
it's like Jesus then Adam. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just not normal.
He's pretty great.
He's pretty darn great. Um, but he said something to me the other day, which I will pass on to you, Austin, and those who are listening, and that is that we have a target on our back, and millennials are no exception to that. The target, the bullseye, is so clear in the enemy's mind, and he wants to rob you, steal, kill, and destroy. Um, your voice, really, your voice and your passion and your drive. And he'll use whatever he can, specifically targeted in those three things we talked about at the start, which identity, belonging, and separation. Those are the ways he goes in. I mean, if you're having a sin issue, or you're questioning something, or you're feeling a mild depression set in, it almost always goes back to identity, belonging, and really purpose. And so if you can speak to that and say, your voice is not going to be loud anymore, enemy. The target is no longer for you to hit, because my Savior's already hit that target. Goodbye. Go back to hell where you belong.
Yeah.
'Cause, um, my voice matters. And Our culture is starving for people who will take a stand and know why they're standing, where they're standing, and to bring others along in that bold position.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down and have an interview with me. And just super grateful for your impact on my life, and I'm sure many others. I hope the listeners will appreciate that as well.